Hello, welcome to the program. Ahead, Foxtel's annual results, plus all the TV ratings. And as internet ad revenue jumps 18% in the past year, what's driving the growth and what challenge does the move to charge for online news content pose? But first, the latest radio rating survey from Nielsen. We're going to take a look through the top 5 stations in each metro market. And with all the details, our co-host is here, James Manning, Media Week editor and publisher. James, good to see you. We should make clear this is the commercial stations that we're looking at. So let's start with Sydney, having a look at the top 5 commercial stations there. So leading the way, James, what, 2GB and Today FM just continuing to cement their place as market leaders? 2
stations, AM, 2GB, FM, of course, Today. Been at the top of the Sydney station, the Sydney market for a long time now. Those two, Nova and WS, both went up this survey, as did 2UE, which was has been hanging out for a bit of a rise, and it finally got one.
Jonesy and Amanda, though, at WSFM just couldn't quite catch the Nova team, though.
No, they both went up by 4 points, so the gap stayed the same between them. Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's move on to Melbourne now, and again 3AW there and Fox FM. Both remaining the leaders, clear leaders in that market.
It's very rare to that combo gets upset. AW always number one, Fairfax radio station, and Austereo's Fox. Been a long time number one in Melbourne. Nova, there's always been there's been a gap of about 6 points for the last few years now. The big move of this survey was Gold, which went down, the Australian Radio Network. Not good look for them. Vega's nipping on its heels. DMG's most successful Vega station. Less than half a point behind it now, and it's out rating at 40 to 54, and it's out rating Gold in Breakfast.
All right, let's have a look at Brisbane, and yet again there we see Nova doing quite well for DMG there with a 12.4% share.
Yeah, they got back on top. I think last time we looked at radio, Craig Bruce from Austereo was in here, and we talked about how Bead 105 had gone back to number one in Brisbane, but Nova's moved back to the top of the market. Big move of this survey was probably 97.3. It's moved up into third spot, Triple M fourth, and 4BC, the Fairfax radio station, with Jamie Dunn in Breakfast, which a lot of people thought mightn't work, but the former FM jockeys are having a pretty good year, actually.
Okay, and is it always so close between those top 4?
Yeah, it is actually in Brisbane, yeah.
And just turning there to Adelaide, and yet again we see the talkback win out over the music stations.
Sure, yep, 5AA, although the margin's getting pretty slim. I think they've been on top for, I can't remember now, it's a long time anyway. It could be like around 30 surveys, but they're hanging there by the merest thread at the moment. SAFM had a big jump, again at Craig Bruce's home station, he'd be very happy about that. Mix and Triple M underneath, Nova in 5th spot in Adelaide. You don't want to be out of the top 5, of course, in a market like Adelaide, because there's only 6 commercial stations.
And just finally, of course, to Perth and EC Mix, the clear leader there.
Yeah, Mix has dominated in, that's had about 70 odd surveys at the top in Perth, so that's probably not to change. 96 had a great survey, a Fairfax radio station, doing very well there. 6BR was the big drop in that market, down to 8.8.
All right then, just coming out and looking wider at some of the other news out of the radio sector, and what is going to happen now, I guess, for Austereo? Had a good survey there, but what is particularly is going to be happening with Today FM and Triple M in those Sydney and Melbourne markets? Yeah,
well, the new Triple M Sydney show, Gus Warland was appointed. He's going to be the main host. Support crew including a cricketer, an ex-footballer. Sammy Lucas is going to be, I think, doing the news. It's going to be 6 people in total. That show starts next Monday. It's also anticipated that Kyle and Jackie O will be back next Monday, but the only people that Devon deserted them are the fans, because their show actually went up this week. But still no announcement on what's happening at Triple M in Melbourne. Seem to be having a bit of trouble putting their breakfast show together. We mentioned before maybe Eddie Maguire was a chance, but at the National Digital Radio Day we covered last week, he actually appeared in Melbourne, but for Sen, an opposition station down there. So maybe he's not going to Triple M after all.
Watch this space. Just quickly, some of the moves that we've been seeing as well. Rebecca Wilson giving up Vega in Sydney.
Yeah, one of the originals. She started in Drive on Vega in Sydney with Tony Squires. They later moved to Breakfast, added Mikey Robbins to the team, became a trio. Hasn't been a rating success, to be honest. It's actually the second lowest rated show in Sydney in Breakfast. But Rebecca was one of the, she broke broke a few stories on the show with her sports contacts. Now, without that, they mightn't have a lot to offer the listeners. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But apparently Tony and Mikey have been signed to front up again next year.
And just finally as well, Carrie Bickmore. I mean, no surprises here. She's having to give up her radio commitments given 7 p.m. projects Monday to Friday. Yeah,
I think she found it a bit tough working at 6 a.m. then fronting up a show at 7 p.m. So it was a big ask. And yeah, she's turned that in. I think she's off air next month. Judith Lucy will be is going on to her old spot on Rove, and there'll be another announcement. Maybe Miff Warhurst, the next Triple M person, will be moving into Rove as well. And they've appointed a new newsreader for the Nova Breakfast Show as well.
That Lauren Bain there.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. All right. Let's just move on to some of the other news out this week. And businesses that attract consumer revenues are going to fare much better than ad-supported firms over the next 5 years. That was a key finding of the PricewaterhouseCoopers' latest annual outlook for the media and entertainment sector. It forecasts Australian ad spend will only grow by 1.7% on average to 2013, while consumer and end-user spend will rise 5.5%. Overall, the value of the entire sector will grow to $30.8 billion by 2013. PwC also predicts that virtually stagnant growth will be seen in total revenues for traditional media such as free-to-air TV and newspapers, while the internet and subscription TV are expected to see average growth of around 10%.
Certainly we're not going to see the same sort of bounce back that we saw in the 91 recession and then the dot-com recession. And that's really reflecting the, I suppose, the structural change in the entertainment and media sector, which is very much reflecting the rapid migration of a lot of advertising online. So the challenge is that those traditional revenue dollars that were in the traditional media sector are very much being replaced by what we phrase digital pennies.
Well, also supporting the strong performance of online advertising were figures this week from the Interactive Advertising Bureau. It found internet ad spend rose 18% to nearly $2 billion in the 12 months ended June, but growth did slow in the June quarter to 9.8%. Well, IAB CEO Paul Fisher joins us now to tell us more. Paul, certainly seems to be some great figures there, but I guess there has been that slowing a little bit in the June quarter. I mean, how significant is that move?
Well, it's astounding, isn't it, really, Bridie, that we're talking about a slowdown in growth when we're posting a 20% growth rate year on year. It is slowing down. I think the heady days, or clearly the heady days of the 30, 40, 50% growth rates in the interactive advertising industry, they're behind us now. The size of the market is, as you say, almost $2 billion now, so it's a significant medium in the scope of the overall industry. And I think it's expected that the rate of growth would slow down. But still, 20% across the market for the year, 25% in search and directories, 20% in display, and 6% in classifieds for the year. Very, very strong growth, and great to continue to support new businesses and existing digital businesses as well.
What's your feel for the second half of this calendar year, the 6 months we're in now? How do you think that's going to fare?
That's the most often asked question I've been asked. Look, the PricewaterhouseCoopers outlook is that it's going to grow by about another $1 billion for the next 6 months, and that'll get us almost at the $2 billion mark for the calendar year of 2009. So I think there's probably going to be about another 16% growth for July to December 09 versus the same period last year.
Okay.
Just looking too about what we've been seeing, well, certainly with classifieds, I mean, is that a concern? I mean, is real estate playing a big part in that fall that we did see in the June quarter anyway?
Do you know, it's interesting, Bridie, we don't tend to break out the individual, the three categories of the sector of real estate, automotive and employment. But what we do see in this particular report is that historically employment has always been the largest of the three. But for the first time, this quarter showed that real estate had in fact become the number one in the expenditure of those three. So we've seen definitely, or we can certainly surmise, there's been a downturn in expenditure for employment classifieds. That's not surprising given the state of the economy. But probably the government support of the first homeowners grant and the extension of that has probably helped, I think, buoy the investment in online classifieds for real estate.
Finance advertisers seem to be the biggest single contributor to your figures. Looking through your numbers, I think credit card spending was down a bit. Personal banking is very strong. Do those numbers spring around much? And
I don't think they do that. They do move around a little bit. Again, not surprising given the state of the economy and where consumers' focus is. Their focus isn't really on getting new credit cards unless they're trying to switch down to lower interest rate cards and probably not into deposit accounts. But I think we're going to start to see a trend back towards credit cards as the confidence levels increase in the finance sector. So I do think, as you say, it bobs up and down a bit. It'll certainly come back to at least its previous levels and continue to grow.
Paul, do stay with us. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. But now we're just going to turn to, as newspapers are being pressured by the shift of readers onto websites, cost reduction has of course been vital. PageMasters, which is owned by Australian Associated Press, has been providing newspapers with editorial production services so that they can outsource things such as layout and design and sub-editing. And now PageMasters is taking the brand into North America. And for more on this, we're joined from our Melbourne studio by the Managing Director of PageMasters, Bruce Davidson. Bruce, thanks so much for your time. Just firstly, tell us a little bit about this licence agreement that you've signed.
Yes, Bridie. Look, we've entered an arrangement with the Canadian Press, which I guess is the equivalent of Australian Associated Press in Canada, to work with them to establish the PageMasters brand effectively in both Canada and the US. The Canadian Press will operate the system over there, and PageMasters will be providing a lot of advice, consultancy to get the operations up and running, and then the aim is to generate some revenue streams for us back here, depending on the success of the business over in the US and Canada.
Bruce, it's James here. Well, I spoke to you earlier this year when you'd just started some work in the UK. Can you tell us a little bit how that's been going this year?
Yeah, look, it's been going very well. Yes, we've been providing sub-editing for the London Daily Telegraph and the Sunday Telegraph in the UK for nearly 9 months now. It's been quite a seamless switch. It's going very, very well, and I think in that case the time zone advantage that we offer potential clients in the UK is fantastic, in that the people deliver their content at the end of their day. We pick it up in our morning and deliver it back at the end of our day. So it's a really quite a magical event for the Telegraph.
Bruce, we just wanted to come back and have a chat quickly now about the wider issues facing the media sector. We've got Paul Fisher here, the IAB CEO as well. I guess one of the big things that we've had in the past week is News Corp CEO saying that there'll be a move towards paid online content for those news sites in this financial year. Paul, I just wanted to ask you, I mean, how much do those news sites contribute to attracting readers to online? I mean, are they a big part?
Oh, significant. I think given that the makeup of the media industry in this country, there are a few, or 5, 6 major players, and 2 of those are traditional news providers. So it's a major investment in those businesses, particularly in the digital part of the business now, to enhance the print side of the business. And news is a very sticky commodity, or content area in online. So it's very important to those particular businesses, and it's very important to the online industry as a whole.
Bruce, I just wonder if we could bring you into this discussion as well, and just perhaps ask, I mean, how PageMasters is going to deal, I guess, with this shift, as we've mentioned, of readers moving online.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, really, we've been approached, by the publishers to say, well, how can we do the production of our newspapers in a more efficient manner and obviously save some costs in that area. And that's really going to mean that we are establishing, production centres for those newspapers, ostensibly at the moment for the print products. But of course, if the pendulum shifts and more and more resources are pushed onto online, I think production centres, centralised production for newspaper publishers would be well placed then to be in a position to offer the production and editing and checking processes for the online products.
Paul, there's a massive amount of challenges to get across this. I mean, one is convincing people to pay, I guess, where they've been getting free content, and the other one is how do they collect the monies as well? There's lots of options there. Have you got any thoughts about either of those?
I do. I should point out that it's obviously not the remit of the IAB to get involved in paid content. It's really our remit is very much around advertising. But my views are that there are a lot of research. I mean, PricewaterhouseCoopers said the other day in the release of their Media Outlook report that their survey shows that there's a large proportion of consumers are willing to pay for certain content. I think they were saying that they carried out a survey of 6,000 consumers, and most of those were prepared to pay up to 92% of the cover price of a newspaper for news content and up to 75% of the cover price for sport content. So I think the issue is not about will consumers pay for content. I think it's about which content will they pay for and, of course, how much. Once the media proprietors get through that with their research, then, of course, they've got to set up payment mechanisms. And I think that, well, I know for a fact that they're looking at that and have been looking at that for quite a while now.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, whether it's you set up an account or can you view a story and just pay for one story? I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see what they come up with.
I think it will, and I don't think that it's going to be too difficult because there are a variety of payment mechanisms that people online are used to anyway, whether it's your credit card, whether it's a subscription model, whether you choose certain options such as bundled packages or individual elements of a package. I think a lot more has been made out of this than maybe needs to be. The reality is that they'll make it simple, they'll make it fast and easy and quick, and I think that we'll see that very soon.
All right, I'm afraid we've run out of time, but it's been great to have you in today. Paul Fisher from IAB and also, of course, Bruce Davidson, Managing Director of Page Masters. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
We are just going to take a very quick break now and we'll have more Media Week in just a moment, including a look at some of the magazine launches and events coming up and what's ahead in the TV's ratings battle. Welcome back. Subscription TV provider Foxtel has posted a solid annual result. Earnings jumped by 16% to $406 million thanks to an 8% rise in household subscriber numbers. At the end of June, Foxtel had 1.63 million direct and wholesale subscribers. Revenue was also up 11% higher to $1.84 billion. CEO Kim Williams says the pace at which Foxtel has been adding subscribers is sustainable.
We're well away from any ceiling. The only limitation I would expect that would affect our growth are the economic settings themselves. And whilst there are many encouraging signs in terms of a turn in our economy, even more than in the international economic arena, it's too early to actually make any call on that, so that may affect our growth in the current year.
And West Australian newspapers also released full-year results in the past week with a big slide in profit thanks to the sharp decline in ad revenue. With the details, here's Chris Weston from IG Markets.
Certainly we saw Western Australian News on Friday report their numbers. You know, the stock obviously had a lot to live up to. We've seen the stock rally up about 41% since the beginning of July. So we not only need to see good numbers from the company, we also needed to see strong narratives supporting the recent gains. Now, it didn't really come, and we saw net profit up at $97.1 million, beating expectations by about $3 or $4 million. We saw good positive cash flows from the company and dividend paying 10 cents, which was slightly better than expected. But certainly there was really no narrative or not enough narrative to support the stock at these levels, and we saw the stock fall 3.3%. The following day on Monday we saw a tail down as well, down 2.6% on the following day. Now the key takeouts that we saw from the company is we saw ad revenue seems to be stabilising. We saw cost controls, again very apparent in the result, and some analysts saying that the rate of decline in ad revenue seems to be contracting and that we should see that actually start to pick up going forward. And the price earnings ratio at the moment is 12.2 times, so it shows a very, very optimistic recovery profile baked into the price we've got at the moment. You know, brokers were very mixed on what we saw there. We saw a number of companies, UBS notably, putting a sell recommendation on the company. But I think that we saw downgrades there, but really on the other hand we saw price increases or price targets increase. You know, with JP Morgan slap a $6.21 price target on the stock, up about 35 cents. A number of companies doing that, RBS as well. Ultimately, since $5.90 was the low on Monday, we have seen the stock seem to pick up, and it's trading about 35 cents higher at the moment. I think there are other stocks in the sector better suited at the moment, but certainly, you know, the fact that they didn't give a good optimistic outlook saw the stock get punished, and that's become a bit of a benchmark in reporting season.
All right, to all the magazine sector news now. And James, a couple of bits of really interesting things. We've been hearing a lot about the ACP 30 Days of Fashion and Beauty. Now, they've actually launched their website and had a few more announcements.
Yeah, that's up and going, and they've been adding to, I think we've also mentioned before, the magazines go live this sort of weekend of Friday and Saturday and Sunday. They're having it at the, I think it's at the Horton Pavilion or the Royal, down at Fox Studios anyway. A public pay $50 to get in. They're going to get, free hair, makeup or stuff like that, goodie bags. And they announced a whole lot of artists are going to be performing. It's sort of indicative of the crowd they're expecting. A lot of Australian Idol, Illuminati, people like that who now have got recording careers. They'll be popping up. So I guess they'll be expecting a younger crowd.
Okay.
It's good for the whole magazine sector, I guess, raising the profile and getting people to sample the product if they're not consumers already.
Definitely, and excuse me, what downturn? We've got a new magazine launch coming up from rival Pacific magazines.
Yeah, Prevention. We had Peter Zavik in not so long ago. He was talking to us about he'd been out spruiking the magazine to potential advertisers. They weren't able to give us a launch date then, but we know now it's going to be September 7. It's less than 4 weeks away. Apparently it's been doing good business on the ad side. They've got advertisers coming in from a range of sectors and people committing for up to 4 issues, they tell us.
Good.
Yeah, a magazine, again, just reminding the viewers, aimed at women over 40 and a health magazine.
Yeah, there's a sample cover there
Yep.
they sent us. All right, let's just have a look now at some of the news out of the TV sector, in particular the results of week 32 of the rating season. And there you see the top 5 programs packed to the rafters at number 1, talking about Your Generation for 10 at number 5, and just turning the page and 7 with another 3 programs in there, including World's Strictest Parents, which has been doing really well. 9 News Sunday making an appearance at 6 and number 7 there. Spicks and Specs for ABC One. Let's get James's view on what we've been seeing there.
You mentioned World's Strictest Parents. It's interesting. It's a format that's been run in the UK and the US, and they did a couple of weeks here with Australian kids. It's basically kids go and live with strict parents in other countries, sort of, troublesome children who act badly at home. And last night they screened one of the UK episodes and it didn't seem to affect the ratings at all. The audience stuck with it, so it's good news for 7, I guess, so they can trot out the overseas episodes and mix some in with the Australian.
Yeah, definitely. Now, just some other news as well. City Homicide for 7. That had a bit of a modest launch considering the success it had.
Yeah, probably wasn't too bad. It was 1.3 million on Monday night. I think the average last year the show did about 1.6, 1.7. So they might be hoping that to pick up a little bit. It's been up against The Farmer Wants a Wife and I think Good News Week on 10. Both shows that do well over 1 million themselves. So it's a tough time slot, but it's still won all people. Wasn't quite so hot in the demos, but it's a long way to go, yeah.
Yeah, it might pick up. Judith Lucy, as you mentioned earlier, joining the Rove team this weekend. Should be pretty funny.
Yeah, moving in, replacing Dave Hughes. Hasn't been a regular on TV for quite a while, I think. So, yeah, it'll be great to see her back on the box. She does a lot of live shows. Had a relatively unsuccessful stint in breakfast radio in Sydney, which was a big part of her stage show for a while. But I think she's finally over that. So it'd be...
Maybe.
It'd be good to see how she goes on TV.
Yeah, definitely. Now, just turning to Channel 9, looking for some new projects for Eddie Maguire.
There was talk this week he's filmed a pilot for a chat show in the 7 p.m. slot, which would be pretty weird seeing Channel 10 have actually also got a sort of a panel talk show in the 7 p.m. slot. So I can't see that one getting up, and if it did, it'd probably go to a different time slot because 9 are actually doing good business at the moment with the repeats of 2.5 Men, which you can't kill that audience with an axe. So I don't think you'd be moving that out to that show as well and truly had it so.
And just as well, I mean, just looking at what we saw on Sunday night as well, the drama with 60 Minutes basically becoming 50 minutes as the story had to be pulled. Sure,
yeah. What happened was the station received news of an injunction which had been held in secret or without them knowing about it at 7:25, 5 minutes before the show was to go to air. 9 tell us, look, that was way too late to pull out they had plenty of stories, ready to go, but it was too late to put it into the system and get it up. So the show ended about 8:20. They had a story on Woodstock, which was pretty good actually, yeah. But that stopped at 8:20, and then they just ran some promos and ads for the next 10 minutes. Wasn't great news for Rescue Special Ops either, because a lot of the audience drifted away in those 10 minutes to see what else was on. They didn't come back. A bit of speculation in the paper that David Gingell had gone missing. He couldn't be reached. What was happening. All he was, he'd apparently gone away with his wife Layla, who actually works on the for 9 on Saturday and Sunday, so they had a quiet evening out. His phone was off for 3 hours during all this sort of panic. But, you know, those things happen, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And just finally, speaking of that Sunday night battle, we saw quite a close battle between Blitz and then the all singing and all dancing rivals, but Blitz managed to just pip in and win.
Yeah, it was a show that did very well in that slot. Nine have tried it a couple of other places, didn't do so well, and that's back in at 6:30 Sunday, so it should do good business for them. Bit of talk this week that Idol had a very a poor start. It was the lowest launch episode ever, but it still did great business in the demos. Did fine business there. Dancing with the Stars does good total audience figures, but in the advertiser sort of under 50 demos, it's not quite so hot.
All right, let's just turn to what we saw in the subscription TV ratings results for week 32. And just looking there, NRL taking top 4 positions, and then the Ashes dominating for much of the other top 10. So just turning the page, and you can see Fox 8 did make an appearance there at number 10 with America's Next Top Model. And we're just going to turn the page and have a look at some of the other top programs as well. We're just going to hold fire on this graphic at the moment. And James, just tell us what you're seeing with some of these shows.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of shows that aren't sport to get outside of the top 10, because sport's a big magnet, but Fox 8 is well represented, as it usually is. Shows that are also hits on free-to-air, of course. Family Guy on 7, The Simpsons, a staple of the 10 network. Wanted was the Angelina Jolie film, so first-run films still do big business for subscription TV. Deadliest Catch has been a perennial for Discovery, and of course the Law and Order franchise is all over 10, it's all over TV1, and they started Law and Order UK last night, yet another one.
Very popular. And just finally, of course, we heard from Foxtel CEO Kim Williams that those confirmation of those new channels and when they're coming.
30 new channels. They'll be up the Optus satellite that they'll be using for the bandwidth goes up on August 22. Once that's up and running, Foxtel get access, and the channels should be launching in October. So watch out for some big marketing activity then. It'll give, you know, people who've been on the edge of wavering, should they subscribe or not. There'll be a lot of new HD channels as part of that package, so it just might tip those people over the edge.
Even more for us to talk about then.
Absolutely.
James Manning, Media Week editor and publisher, thank you so much. And that's all we've got time for from the team here. Thanks for your company.